Okay, everyone. I noticed last time in the last video that when I had this selected, the left finger's manip, we didn't freeze the transformations. So to freeze the transformations, we can go up to Modify, down to Freeze Transformations. Now I made a little icon here. If you guys forget how to make these icons, you can make your own shelf. And right now I have my own shelf called My Shelf. I could call it Jared's Rigging, or I can just go to the custom shelf if I like. And once you go to modify down to freeze transformations, you can hold down shift and control at the same time and click on freeze transformations. And I'll do that right now with my left mouse button. And you're going to see that it adds an icon. Okay, I'm going to right click on this icon because I don't really need it, and I can go down to delete. You could also drag an icon to this little trash can up here. It's kind of hidden up there. But I'm going to go to freeze the transformations. I'll click on my new little icon. You guys could also just use modify freeze transformations if you would not like to make an icon. And at this point we should be able to translate and rotate this object based off of 0. Now that's going to show that our frozen transformations have been applied to this object. Okay, now this object is pretty nice because we didn't have to worry about it being locked from freezing the transformations. So make sure that you guys freeze transformations. If you have an object locked, then you're going to have to unlock it and all that good stuff just to be able to freeze the transformations. Now this is a nice proper workflow, industry standard style, and you guys will be able to work with this more easily the way that it is. Now to add an attribute, we need to have this object selected. Okay, and another thing to mention with this object selected is that in your notes it's going to tell you to hide and lock the translates, rotates, scale, and visibility of this object. But again, I do recommend that you guys do that at the very end. Since this is your first time rigging, it could be kind of a pain to have to go back and do that. So I'm going to leave these open because if we lock and hide them now, we're going to have to unlock and unhide them so that we can edit this if we do need to edit this object. But right now I do want to add an attribute to it. So I am going to go up to Edit in my channel box, and I'm going to go down to Add Attribute. Click on that. With this attribute editor up, and it's just a new window, I can add the name here under the long name. So this is going to be a lot like when we were doing the foot. And the first thing that we're going to add is the index curl. And I'm going to leave a lot of these, like I need it to be keyable so that I can key it. It's going to be set to float. That's fine. Float's going to allow us to have a lot of options in animating this with decimals and such. Scholar always stays on in this case, so we don't have to worry about that. A minimum we could put to 0. I'm sorry. So a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 10. I just hit the tab key. You could jump to these different lines without having to click on them. So I'll type in 10 for the maximum and a default of 0. Now what I like to do is I like to go back and change this because right now the hand is going to be in a type of set position or a resting position as you would think of it. And we know that we can hyperextend our hands or fingers backwards a bit. So I do like to give it a minimum of negative either 5 or 10. And in this case I'll do a negative 10. It's not going to hurt anything. And a maximum of 10. If you guys would like a little bit more movement in between here, this is going to be divided by steps. The steps are going to be divided by our rotations. So our rotations are going to respond on how much we let the finger curl by what we have in our maximum and minimum. So therefore, if I have a value divided by 10, it's going to be a larger step or rotation than if I were to break this up into 20 or 30. Okay, so the higher the number of the maximum and minimum, the more subtle movement or in-betweens you're going to have. Okay, so that could allow for a little bit more capability or movability of the character. And in this case, we're going to have a character that we don't really need all that much movability or finite detail to get across that 10 and negative 10 wouldn't work or wouldn't get across for the animations that we need to do. Okay, you can always go back and change those and rekey them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add that. At the bottom here I can click add. You're going to see that in my channel box I get an index curl. Now the index curl is just going to be for